All right, I'm going to invite now, as I just move down here, Maria Constantinou. In fact, I'm going to invite you to pronounce your surname, please, Maria.
Constantinou.
Thank you very much.
No worries, Michael. Thank you.
You've got a couple of gigs here in our conference, and I thank you therefore for your time. And clearly you've shared your screen there. So Maria, you are an Australian registered physiotherapist. You're a senior lecturer in physiotherapy, in fact, at the Australian Catholic University. Your clinical teaching and research interests include the healthy participation in sports and exercise, and don't we all need that? So this will be a very timely talk. You're also interested in the prevention and management of sports injuries, and increasingly, from my perspective, the reflective practice in health education. So put together, that's a fantastic experience that you'll impart with us now. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for this opportunity to join the conference. It's a privilege, and I'm very happy to be sharing our experiences with COVID-19 transition from face-to-face to online teaching in 1 week for a physiotherapy unit that we are teaching. I would like to first of all acknowledge all my teaching team, and especially Christine Sonsearay, who leads the team that developed the content that we're going to be discussing today. I would also like to acknowledge Kylie and Kath from our Ballarat and North Sydney campuses, who were also involved in leading the teams in making these effective changes. So just as a bit of a background, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our physiotherapy curriculum at Australian Catholic University. It is taught across 3 campuses simultaneously in Brisbane, Ballarat and North Sydney. And we have over 300 students in total per year. So for this particular year that we are, the second year, there is about 305 students in fact. It's a 4-year program, and the first 3 years consist of theoretical and clinical practical skills that the students need to acquire and integrate so that they can then be able to apply it in their clinical placements, which happen for the entire 4th and final year. So the PHTY 206, which is the unit that we'll be discussing, is the Musculoskeletal Physiotherapy Practice unit. It's taught in year 2, semester 1. And the content actually is on lower limb musculoskeletal conditions and sports injuries. It's the first of 3 and the foundational unit for the musculoskeletal system. So just to give you a little bit of an idea is if you, for example, sprain your ankle and you went to see a physiotherapist, this is where our students will learn how to assess and how to treat and how to the condition and how to help you to return back to sport or back to normal activity of daily life. So it's really important then that we bear in mind that it does incorporate a whole series of practical skills as well as clinical reasoning skills to be able to learn how to effectively assess and treat someone with an injury. So to do this, we have 2 hours of lectures usually per week and 4 hours of practical classes for a semester of 12 weeks. So some timelines then as to what changed in first semester as a result of COVID-19. So very similar to what Michael said before. So then on the 24th of February, we started our semester as usual, thinking, yes, we're going to bypass these changes that are happening everywhere else in the world. And we're going to be continuing with our semester as normal. On the 13th of March, we get an email from our head of school, just like Michael did. One morning say, start thinking and preparing. It's likely that we're going to go online. So think about what you might do with your units. At the same time, they said to us, well, practical classes, you have to stop contact. The students are not allowed to practice on each other. You're not allowed to demonstrate on the students. So what are we going to do? So we then started to, just demonstrate on each other, but the students had to keep their distance and just watch, which is not really a good way for us to be able to see how they're learning, to be able to assess someone with an ankle sprain, for example, and how to provide the treatment. But we made sure that we watched them from afar and we got them to practice on themselves wherever possible. 23rd of March, just like Michael said previously, we ceased all face-to-face teaching. We said, that's it, no more. And we brought the mid-semester break earlier again from April to March. And we said, okay, you have 1 week to prepare all your content to be delivered online. So we had to develop new videos for all the practical techniques. We didn't actually have everything pre-recorded because we were teaching it all face-to-face. So we had to work long hours. The whole team got together and in different campuses and developed different videos for different parts of the body. And the lower limb really refers to the hip, the knee, and the ankle. So we had to develop all of those. And it also we needed to make sure that we had all of the agreements in place to move all of these forwards, including all of our campuses and all of our teams. So on the 30th of March, we commenced 100% online teaching, full-time. The new extended unit outlines had to be changed, had to be finalized, and had to be made available to the students with the changed assessment tasks. Otherwise, we couldn't go ahead with them. So that was the process that had to happen during that week as well. So finally, we got through it to semester, finished on the 22nd of May. We had an end of semester examination. I'll be giving you a few more details of that shortly. And then to complete the unit, we had to bring the students back for one short period on the 22nd of July to assess their competencies. And I'll cover that again as I'm explaining a little bit more of what we did. But what happened during that week? It was a crazy week. We got all these new words coming up, new learnings. We had to learn about Zoom. We had to learn about Microsoft Teams. We had to learn about backgrounds, breakout rooms. It was mind-boggling. You know, we were all exhausted. And just, I'm sure, like everybody else was in Australia and the world. Challenges. We couldn't find webcams. They'd all sold out. We couldn't find headphones. Teaching online had a lot of teething problems because some people had never done it before. What's breakout room? How do you assign students to breakout rooms? We had to do tutorials. How do you turn cameras on and off, you know, so that you don't have your husband walking behind you if you're working from home, or your children when they're trying to get your attention. Encouraging student engagement, again, was a challenge because, you know, their environment, as well as, and then at the same time, we needed to make sure we emphasize a lot of the learning. And the learning that we focused on was looking at clinical reasoning skills, because we couldn't do the practical skills face-to-face. We taught them to rationalize and understand when they would select the different assessment or the different treatment techniques to help develop that aspect really well while we had the face-to-face time on Zoom. Sorry, and the setup and teaching bandwidth problems, as well as sharing more spaces with family and pets, was also a really big issue. So the teaching and learning strategy then for the unit went from 2-hour lecture and 4-hour practical to 2 hours lecture again that was pre-recorded and uploaded on the learning site. And then we still continue with the 2-hour practical classes delivered live on Zoom. But we had to slightly alter the way we did it so that the students didn't fatigue. So we're talking about physical activity. Yes, we'd say every 20 minutes to half an hour, everybody stand up, let's do some squats, let's move around. Show me, you know, if we were practicing a balance exercise, okay, show me how you stand up to balance, to try and get them moving and encouraging them to keep physically active as well. And but we also needed to develop protocols for the students, and just like you develop protocols in class, we had to develop protocols about when to ask questions, put their hand up, turn cameras on wherever possible, as well as ensuring that we engage them. And it became, some students actually really responded well to having their name called out to answer questions, and some students didn't like that. But it was important to try and get engagement. Otherwise, you just sit there and they're all staring at the screen and there's no interaction. So the practical classes online, well, how to do them with video. So this is my colleague, Chris Sonsearay, who is teaching how to palpate, how to examine the ankle online on a model, on an ankle model. But she also had to think about doing it in the reflection of the camera, to me and make sure that she was saying the right things. Otherwise, she could be naming the wrong thing because the way that it was looking in the camera. We had to teach them how to assess the joints, how to do the special orthopedic tests, how to do strapping and taping, all through videos online. The students were able to type text questions anytime, and we had, because there was 2 or 3 tutors at a time, we were able to also monitor the chat and respond to the questions in real time. We did get more questions because it was on text, and that was really good. That was very encouraging. So for assessment then, we had a mid-semester practical exam, an end-of-semester practical exam, and an end-of-semester written exam pre-COVID. But after COVID, we had to change the assessments because we couldn't do the practical exam face-to-face. So we did a mid-semester online exam that we did attempt to invigilate, and later were told that it's too difficult. So we needed to then learn from that and learn that we had to change the way we wrote our questions for online exams to ensure that they're more based on clinical reasoning rather than on fact, and being able to represent facts back to us. So that way it was more about their understanding and they couldn't copy from each other. We did an end of semester oral viva exam. So we had, and this picture that you can see on screen, and this is not one of our students, I just used another photo, where I was examining them face to face on their clinical reasoning, how they would assess someone with an ankle sprain, for example, what they would do for treatment, why they would decide to select that, how they would progress them. So we did the oral viva more to understand their clinical reasoning. And then the end of semester online written exam, having learned from the mid-semester exam, we made it a lot more clinical reasoning based. And then we also had the end of July intensive face-to-face classes. Because we were allowed to bring the students in most of our campuses in July, we had a few days of where we actually examined all the practical skills we taught online, but we examined them as competencies. We didn't grade them. We just decided, well, we don't want a student that can only perform an assessment test 50%. We want them to be able to either do it or not do it. So they were able to repeat and practice until they got it correct. So that was a really different approach to learning, and for us to teach and for us to assess their learning. And the students felt a lot less pressured because they weren't being graded. It was as a hurdle task. So that was how we had to change our assessment. And then when we looked at the student learning and teaching evaluations, the results were overall very similar. Sorry, the marks themselves were overall very similar, with the same mark distribution as we've had in previous years. The teaching and learning evaluations, I'll tell you in the next slide, once again, were also similar. So what are some staff reflections and some student and feedback and some student feedback? So the staff, the team that worked with the unit found the team support and collaboration really, really helpful, and they actually saw how resilient we all were as a team and how we were able to support each other and work well. And we were able to develop resources that we can now use in the future because we have to think about how we're going to go forwards. We also did have a lot more time to develop the students' clinical reasoning, and that was reflected by comments we got from the students as well, because now they can understand why they might need to apply some of these techniques a lot better, and hopefully they'll be able to then execute the techniques a lot easier. And we used also a lot more case-based learning by using different scenarios of patient scenarios. The staff did comment that they found marking the online exam much easier. They didn't have to decipher handwriting, and I totally support that. I think that's a really good advantage. But the staff also found the workload was humongous. Just to do it all in 1 week is mind-boggling. The other thing as well is that wasn't as easy to do was to give students feedback on their work, on their comments, and that was a bit of a challenge that we probably need to work on to improve. And the exam invigilation was a bit more complex. The oral viva online was a bit more challenging because we had, in Brisbane alone, we had 125 students to examine, and there was a few of us, but you had 20 minutes and you couldn't run late. And because the students are not used to sometimes, online to be able to respond really quickly, they were running a little bit late. So that was a little bit challenging. That needs to be, maybe the question types might need to be changed. As for the students, they found the classes engaging, and they found that they linked well to the lecture content. They loved the video resources of the practical skills, a great library for them, and the case studies. The online classes via Zoom found that it actually prepared them better for telehealth. So some of the way that we're going clinically as well is with telehealth, and these students are going to be the future really that are going to be taking telehealth to the next level, and they felt that that actually helped them develop those potential skills as well as their clinical reasoning. And they appreciated the teaching team being able to change everything online so effectively. They did say that what didn't go well is clarification of the assessment tasks. They felt we were making them up as we go. That's a fair claim. That's exactly what we did. That's exactly what we had to do. And they also said the number of oral viva scenarios were too many, and scheduling of the oral viva was in their last week, 12-week instead of end of semester, which was, they felt, not giving them enough time to study, but we had to do it at that time because of staff availability. And as a final comment, one of the students said to one of the tutors, I was pessimistic at the start of the transition at first, but now starting to become more optimistic. I feel more confident in talking and asking questions in the Zoom sessions. I feel my communication and explanations are improving as well, so will definitely help in clinical reasoning. You run the sessions very well considering the pandemic. And this is my last slide. This is our end of semester party. So all the team got together in all the campuses. We were able to meet each other's families, children, pets, as you can see in the pictures. And we had to celebrate. We had to get together and say, we did it, we survived, but where to from now? Yes. Are we going towards blended learning? Are we going back to where we were?
Isn't that a good question, Maria?
Thank you for your time.
The question well, and in fact, actually, it reminded me we're going to have plenty of time at the end, and I wonder if you would pose that question when we finish up after Shaminda's talk. Let's actually engage in that question leading up to 12 o'clock. So do make sure we do that after Shaminda's talk. That's a really key question, and I'd like you to lead us with that one if you wouldn't mind. Sure. So we do have some times for questions of Maria, though. Is there anybody who would like to ask a question? While you're thinking of your question, I've got one, because I valued that you're reminding us of many of the online mechanics that are necessary, and that's valuable experience. I also appreciated the fact that you reported on the student feedback, which of course is key. And that feedback loop is really good. My question is, you spoke about the assessment, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, I know what a physiotherapist does. Gee, it must be hard to assess the student manipulation that's required in your profession. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly why when at the first opportunity we had to bring the students back to face-to-face, that's what we did. We had small groups of 10 students and one tutor, and the students practiced the techniques they had viewed on video. We didn't actually reteach them, which is mobilization techniques of the joint, for example. They practiced those techniques, and then they had to demonstrate it as an assessment to make sure that we could see that they were effective in what they're doing. And then we gave them a tick as a competency, rather than grade how well they did it. Because when you are with a physio, you don't want a physio that's going to be assess an orthopedic test only 50% well. You want someone who can do it, or they can't, and then they have to learn. So that's the approach we took. And it worked very well. The students were very happy and said they felt a lot less pressured.
Fantastic. Yes, there are challenges for every discipline, but I suspect the challenges are no greater, they are greater in your discipline. So thank you for that.
Definitely.
Is there another question for Maria?